Okay, we are live with TopDawg Shadic and Rational Empiricist. And we are going to be talking about, we don't know quite what we're going to be talking about, probably John Maddox and his codec video. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, you will witness the utter destruction of John Maddox and his talking points about DNA being a code, right?
Yeah.
In any other context, only an idiot would believe that DNA is a code.
Like it's not
in the human perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but the creationists like
molecule.
to they love utter destruction and rebuking and rebutting, and what else do? They have other tricks up their sleeves.
Cherry picking.
Yeah, cherry picking. They do pick cherries. But
the ad hocness.
Stated Clearly presents. Whoops.
What in the hell?
I gotta mute that stuff.
Oh, that was you. Anyway, Mutable might join us. I'm not sure. I think he's still on the Rages stream. Him and Leo are probably over there. But I was looking at the derivation of the word code. So it comes from a system of laws or a law book called the Codex. And I guess earlier roots of the thing was a tree trunk or a tail, coda, like caudate. So it would be the tail. And it means law. And then there is, let's see, what else do we have? The dictionary definition of a code is, interestingly, a system of words, letters, figures, or other symbols substituted for other words, letters, etc., especially for the purposes of secrecy. The Americans cracked their diplomatic code. So it's considered a cipher, a secret language, secret writing. That's kind of the origins of the word.
Oh.
When I was a little young...
One version.
Yeah. When I was a young Cub Scout, code was, we'd write it in visible ink, and we had ciphers that we made up. And I got into code pretty heavily when I was a kid. But I always thought it was a code. But DNA is a code. At least 1.3% of it is, but not the rest of it. So, yeah, that's something they never talk about. I mean, the rest of it is not a code. Not literally, like John Maddox likes to say.
Yeah.
But the other thing I noticed about Maddox's video is that he kept wanting to say it is literally a code. So hang on a second.
Only the human perspective version. By making them turn into letters, the chemicals. So then, hey, turns it into a code because we are myths, or what do you call it? Matching to understand it.
Right.
Yeah, well, like we're assigning letters and meaning to these molecules, but like they're not fundamentally like it's not like RNA polymerase comes along and says, "Oh, look at this scribbled writing list right here. I best follow this right now."
Unless the physics, how it interacts and stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is his insistence that it is literally a code. Now, if you call something, you have a word code, which humans have been using for hundreds of years, originally to mean book of laws, and then eventually to mean ciphers and things like that. And so if you say it's literally a code, well, then you're required to literally define what you mean by code. And I've always thought that DNA was a code, at least the 1.3% that codes for proteins. And everybody in biology uses the word code. And then in the last, 20, 30 years, we started talking about coding computers. So we wrote code is what we called it. So we have a number of different words or different meanings for the word. But when he said it is literally a code, immediately I wonder why he has to. Why does he need that adjective? What is the point of that?
Well, like you can say the codon to amino acid, like table out there is like a genetic code, but like if you're going to say it's literally a code, that implies that you're thinking DNA itself is informational or a code of some kind, which it isn't. It's a molecule.
I forgot to invite Leo. Did I forget to invite Leo?
Yep.
Oh my. I'm
Shame
so
on
sad.
you.
So sorry. Okay, Leo's invited.
Okay.
You got an email. I'm afraid to put it in. Oh, wow. YouTube rejected my comment. I said, thought I did. It rejected that because it thinks it's spam.
Huh. That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, literally a code. Hi, Ian. But you know, his whole point of saying it's literally a code is because he's setting you up for the intelligent design argument, which is all he does in his little 8 premises here.
Yeah.
Is that readable on the screen?
Yeah, I read it.
Oh no, there goes a neighborhood. I don't know if that's a good joke for you, Leo. I probably shouldn't say that. I don't know.
Wait, what? I don't think I heard it. What's going on?
Nothing. If you didn't hear it, nothing. Hello. Hi, Leo.
How are you doing, Leo?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Anyway. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody said anything. I didn't know what was going on.
I thought we were saying something. Anyway, we were wondering why John wants to say it's literally a code instead of it's a code, because everybody would call it a code, but only that 1.3% now, mind you. And they never talk about that because the rest of it is not a code. The rest of it is pretty much chemical hocus pocus. Don't you think?
I think that's just what life in general is. It's just a bunch of chemical hocus pocus.
Pretty much.
It's
But
a bunch of
go ahead.
It's a bunch of chemical interactions that we give meaning to for some reason and say this is different from everything else going on in the universe.
Well, the only reason we give it difference is because we are life.
Yes, exactly.
It's important to us, but otherwise this literally would just be a bunch of random chemicals doing some stuff.
Yeah. When they get into biosemiotics and information theory, they look at, okay, the DNA code, the trinucleotide code has an adapter. So, and then that goes to a particular amino acid. So there is an arbitrary adapter, basically. So it's somewhat arbitrary. And that's why it would be a little bit different than a lot of chemical reactions, because they're depending on what the substrate is, what the DNA is, it's going to pick a different adapter and put on a different amino acid. So in that respect, it's pretty unique in the field of chemistry. I mean, it's kind of a unique thing. And it is, life is obviously very unique. I mean, I don't know why that is such a big talking point for them. You know, that, I mean, so what? Life is unique. We know it.
It only happened once in all the history. Yeah,
once or twice.
And if it was so easy and stuff, why wouldn't scientists say that there would be multiple times it would happen instead of just one?
And still be happening. So, I mean, it is unique, and the code was forged over billions of years or maybe hundreds of millions of years. And we know a little bit about why it was forged. In fact, well, we can get into that later, but let's look at John's argument. Okay, first of all, Leo, this bullshit with like a whole bunch of disconnected premises and then have a conclusion at the end.
I was reading this. I mean, it just doesn't have a formal structure. It's not the most horribly structured argument I've ever seen, but nobody usually writes out premise 6. They usually just put the number like in parentheses or something like that. Yeah,
well, usually you don't have 8 damn premises. I mean, these are what
You
each
can
one of
have
these-
a lot of premises, but generally what you do is you'll take a few premises and reach another conclusion and then form that conclusion to bring
right.
and form the next set of premises off of that conclusion to break that up. If you're talking an actual formal, like a syllogism.
Right,
Like
like
that.
at this point, he's not coming up with a conclusion. He's coming up with like a
Well, his conclusion would be that therefore intelligent agency is required for life to exist.
right, but like it's not the same formatting. It's more like a set of principles leading to like a hypothesis or something like that. But like less scientific, of course.
Yeah, he's like to be a real logical argument, you would have a few intermediate steps here, I think. Just me. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's missing a few intermediate steps. So basically, this is just a spiel followed by his conclusion. And the spiel is custom designed so that you would, to make the conclusion look reasonable. All codes require arbitrary values being assigned to representative impulses. The fuck is that? Signs or symbols. Oh, he's talking about electronics. So he's already brought in the idea that, this is an electronic communication code. So premise 2, code values and syntax. There really isn't any syntax there. Sort of. Every 3 codons. So that's a real simple syntax. About as simple as syntax can get. Must be determined before messages can be encoded, transmitted, and decoded. Okay. So here we go right here. He's already doing it. Must be determined before, right? So he's already working the prescription, the foreknowledge into his bullshit.
And there's a lot of what I would consider to be unjustifiable presuppositions. Presuppositions that just don't really follow in some of his premises. Some of his premises seem very, very leading.
Yeah. He said he's going to do a part 2 where he's going to elaborate on these. But, okay. So all codes require a translation mechanism, adapter, key, or process. Now, that is correct. That's what I was talking about with semiotics. There's always an interpretant or interpretor. Basically, there's something that interprets the sign. Like I'm walking in the woods, I see a bear track, and I have knowledge of bears, so I interpret it as being run like hell, bear. So that actually happened to me a couple summers ago. But that's another story. Okay, so that part's okay. But now this one, premise 4. Translation of encoded values does not transform one symbol into another. The representative symbols are interpreted to be equal. What the fuck is he saying there?
No idea.
Okay, I think what he's saying is that, it isn't like a chemical reaction that where one chemical converts another into something. The representative symbols, but I don't know why he said the representative symbols are interpreted to be equal. What does that mean? I don't know. He'd have to let us know what he's getting at there. There's something in his twisted mind. John is a part-time information theorist and full-time Uber driver. So we ought to take him seriously. Translation of encoded. Okay. Anyway. Okay. 5. The genetic code contains all these factors. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Kind of with him. 6. All of these requirements depend on foreknowledge of the intended outcome. Where the hell did that come from?
The outcome isn't intended. It's just the outcome that happened and that is continually used. Because all the other outcomes obviously didn't work and so sort of died off. That's what natural selection is.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where we go off the rails right here. Here's where it starts.
So I
really
could grant
sticky.
him premise. I could grant him premise 1 through 5. Premise 6 is the one that I would have the biggest problem with. That's just not true.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the next one, actually.
Oh, we have
All
a
of the
problem
known
with
codes
with
require
all the
intelligent
rest.
agents to create these requirements.
All other known codes. Okay. So here's where he wants to say it's literally a code. So now he wants to talk about it like it's a human, cipher or whatever. No, you can't compare that to biochemistry. So I don't know where the hell he gets it. You can.
Based on how I read this, I actually found what I think are two logical fallacies, at least with that specific premise, because I saw it and it reminded me of specific logical fallacies. One of which being, I wrote it down, the faulty or hasty generalization, and I put that just because all examples of codes are human-made doesn't mean DNA is intelligently designed. If we grant, of course, that DNA is a code, which I don't, but we only have one sample size of things made by humans because we don't see aliens or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that all codes are created, because that doesn't necessarily follow. And then the other thing was what I think is an argument from ignorance, in that if we grant that it shows an intelligent agent exists, sure, what the heck? That doesn't show which one it is. Of course, he would say the Christian God, but then he would have to specify that in some way. Of course, which you're left with just it's made by an intelligent agent. I don't know which intelligent agent, therefore it must be my own intelligent agent, which is by definition an argument from ignorance, because he's saying that nothing has shown that hasn't been designed if it's a code. Therefore, this next thing is a code or something similar to that. I don't know.
Okay, he's already got something here. The hell is it?
I did want to say really, really quickly, for his premises 1 through 4, I would need to talk to an actual computer scientist or information theorist to see just how sound those premises are, or if they're highly personified, or if they're just outright wrong. I don't know enough about those subjects to make.
Okay, Leo, it has nothing to do with information theory. In fact, codes probably don't have that much to do with information theory, as does communication bits, compression, errors.
The point being that he's trying to connect code to information theory, and an information theorist would be able to say whether that's accurate or not.
Yeah, well, let's see. In information theory, they don't talk a lot about codes, but, well, I guess they talk about signs, in biosemiotics, and they apply information theory. But they also talk a great deal about compression and air checking and basically the entropy and, the amount of information. But anyway, Andrew, he covered that. He said, now, before you immediately start screaming, this has nothing to do with God. Notice I literally said intelligent agency. So for once in your life, don't immediately run to your, I don't believe in the Christian God, therefore your argument is false, safe space. So he gets very angry because he's just trying to prove that it was aliens. Okay. So,
well, still, if we grant him that, it's still a faulty generalization then.
Yes. All other known codes require all other known. So what? What known codes?
He's using examples as evidence rather than legitimate evidence, and that's a fallacy.
Right. So what other codes have we found that have to do with biochemistry or organic compounds? I mean, what other codes have we found? So what other codes is he talking about? All other codes.
I think he's talking about computer codes.
Probably.
Yeah, but computer code is even more of a stretch. Computer code is sort of a recipe or an instruction set that you follow to put together a sequence of tokens that basically a machine can execute. That sort of thing.
Isn't that what DNA is, though, just for proteins?
Machine to execute? No, it puts together proteins. Protein is the end of the story.
Yeah, but they always say that, DNA is the instructions to produce a protein.
Yeah, but DNA doesn't produce any proteins by itself.
Yeah,
No.
it's more like
but they don't claim that it does. They claim that it's the set of instructions to make a protein.
Yeah, and
right.
and
It's the template for the messenger RNA to make the amino acid sequence that will fold into a protein. Sure, that's but it's not building the protein, I guess.
No, but wouldn't, and I'm obviously I'm playing devil's advocate here just because that's always a good thing to do. Wouldn't that make DNA a code for how to make proteins? Like a recipe, a code to make proteins.
No direction has it here.
Still natural processes and physics interacting to make that happen.
The argument is broken every which way. Okay, it's deductively invalid due to P6, 7, and 8. As an inductive argument, it has an extended argument by analogy.
Mm-hmm. What kind of book are we looking at today?
John Maddox's The Code argument.
Oh, boy.
Part 1. So there's another part to this immutable.
God, why?
Everything he doesn't want to hear talk about.
Why the fuck am I at the bottom?
Because you're bottom bitch.
Nope. Yeah, I am the bottom bitch around here. I'm the main bitch.
You are.
Yeah, I am. I'm the main bitch.
Whoops! I put TopDawg on the bottom.
Let's see which premisi are we on?
We're on premise 6, 7, and 8, which are all bullshit. So the bullshit starts here.
Premise 6 is where, because 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, I don't know enough about like computer science to know whether those would be things that actually apply to codes or not.
I like that.
But even if we grant them, premise 6 is where the argument falls apart.
Yeah. Premise 6, all the requirements depend on foreknowledge of the intended outcome. Well, something arbitrary means that
the outcome doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. It holds true regardless of what the outcome is. Like the relation between two objects is what defines the result in the case of code. So it can't depend on the outcome necessarily.
Okay, read what No Direction put in chat. He wants to challenge atheists to present a valid and sound argument. The appropriate response is you first.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically.
I love it. Anyway, let's see.
The burn of proof.
Wait a minute. I think I can fix this.
Yeah, I'm feeling like premise 7. It's hard to say whether that's truly a black swan fallacy because he says all other known codes.
Oh, yeah.
And quite frankly, codes is a thing that is developed by an intelligence, i.e. humans.
I fixed it for him. I fixed it for you, John.
Well, the thing is, like with premise 8 about all life requires the genetic code to exist. Well, yes, it does, but that doesn't mean that there is life that we couldn't find a life that doesn't use the genetic code to exist. Right? I mean, the fact that the genetic code is used by all organisms does not preclude the possibility of some organism existing that does not utilize that.
Oh, let's see that.
Now, that's unlikely to be the case. That'd be as shocking as finding out that 1 + 1 is 3. But it's possible. But just because that's biological systems that we've observed operate under doesn't mean that all systems must operate that way.
Yeah, and no direction confirmed that premise 7 is in fact a black swan fallacy. When I first read it, I was like, that sounds awful black swan-y.
Yep.
Yeah, it's teetering on the edge of a black swan fallacy.
Yeah, he says
we haven't seen a non-intelligence do it doesn't mean a non-intelligence cannot ever do it.
Right. So
remind me what it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I have nothing. I got nothing.
Oh. Remind me what a black swan fallacy is again.
So where the name comes from is that. Oh no, you go ahead, Immutable. You'll probably do it better than I will.
Yeah, the black swan fallacy asks you to consider. Imagine an area that you live in, and you essentially live out your day-to-day life, and you see swans every day, but you only see white swans for whatever reason.
Sure.
And essentially it asks you, based upon that observation, right? is it logical to conclude that there are no black swans based upon what you're
What
based
you've
on?
seen.
And the
Right.
answer is short. Yeah. And so the black son of a bitch. Black swan fallacy essentially says that it's saying that because I've only seen blacks or because I've only seen white
You've only
swans,
seen blacks.
right? Because I've only seen white swans, therefore no black swans can exist.
Yeah.
Right. You can make a probabilistic argument with induction. You can't make an absolute one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically, it's trying to extrapolate what you observe to what is potential, and it doesn't work.
Right. It's always tentative.
If you've never seen it happen, you can, and this obviously depends on to the extent that you have experienced things around you. But if you haven't seen something happen, you might be able to justifiably infer that maybe it's less likely to happen, but you aren't justified in ever claiming that, no, it cannot happen just because I haven't seen it happen.
Sure. That makes sense.
And that's what he's doing. He's kind of hinting at that we've never seen anything other than a genetic code be developed by an intelligence. Therefore, that can't happen.
Yeah.
I know I was reminded of some kind of fallacy with that.
Yeah.
That's
Somehow
what
him and Otangelo both, they see this as just a inescapable conclusion.
Yes.
That it's a code, it's literally a code, or it's complex, therefore it has to be designed. And you can't get them to abstract away from it. But anyway, calling it a code is an abstraction. You know, we use abstractions all the time. And all these bioinformatics people that John quotes and that he reads, that's what they're doing, and they know they're doing it. Basically, they're abstracting, they're creating abstract concepts in biochemistry to track what happens inside of a cell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I remember. Go ahead.
May I say something? Or
Yeah.
Sure.
so it is absolutely accurate to say that every living form that we know of use genetic code. And actually, it is the genetic code, meaning it's identical genetic code. Although there is differences, of course.
Yeah, but I added that we know of. That was my addition. So
But
he didn't have that there.
But even if there is no actual genetic code that we are using, I mean, we know of, it must be a rule of translation. So it still have to have some sort of translational code. It doesn't matter is it the same genetical code or it's different, but you need a rule to do that. So
cannot tell what the.
in general, for the origin of life research, for example, it is considered by now that the origin of genetic code is the origin of life as well. Yeah. So should be explainable at the same time.
Yeah, it's the only example that we have of this kind of thing, right?
But there must be a rule. It doesn't matter what is the rule.
Right.
It could be different rule, but it still must be a rule. Also, premise 2 is very interesting here. So who wrote that? So premise 2 is important. Code, value, and syntax must be determined before messages can be encoded, transmitted, and decoded. Are you sure about that? Who said that?
Which one?
2, number 2.
Oh, number 2. I know. Yeah, he kind of stuck that in there.
So here it's very important. Number 2 is very important in terms of analysis to make. According to the law for origin of life, where during the origin of life the information, the rule, meaning the genetic code or some proto-genetic code, and the structure, which is the function, are all of these three are linked in their origin. What does it mean that? That means there is no something that is before. That means that you cannot say. So here's the tricky moment, and that's very important. So all of the three must arise at the same events, in the same type of events. There is no other way. However, if humans design a code, they foreseek how should be. So this is the difference between the evolutionary way and
Yeah.
an intelligent way of doing it. So in fact, the reason that the life come to be is because the code is designed at the same time during the messaging, using the same type of words here. So here's the clear difference between intelligent designer, which makes a code, and evolutionary way. In evolutionary way, you don't have before messages. It happened at the same time. Got it? You're muted. You're muted.
He is already working his conclusion. That is a very good point. He's already working his conclusion into the argument here before.
That's what I
Where
said.
he
All
says
his
it-
premises are loaded.
Yeah.
They presuppose a conclusion.
And transmitted is another one. What does he mean transmitted? He's talking about, messages being transmitted.
So, of course, if you design, intelligent designers do that, you have some idea what you want to do. Therefore, it's before messages. So you create the code, the values and everything, and you create it before the message because you foreseek what must be. But during the origin of life, this is the same event, meaning when it's not intelligent but selection. And here is a clear difference between 1 and 2, meaning between intelligent design and selection forces.
Yep. So that's his argument. It's pretty weak. I mean, he thinks this is just like we're such idiots because we don't follow this and we don't end up arriving at this conclusion. And if you watch his video, it's a pretty short one. He goes ahead and he does all this bullshit. He does all this posturing. Since all atheists and agnostic YouTubers want to talk about the hypotheticals. So anyway, he's asking us to give him a comeback on all this stuff. Anyway. And if you look at, let's see. Oh, no, it's an Otangelo.
Oh boy.
Oh, no.
A wild Otangelo appeared.
A wild Otangelo. Let's see.
Well, if I'm not welcome, I can leave, no problem.
No, you're
we're
good.
giving you shit.
Well, Mike said, "Oh no, Otangelo," so
He does that with me all the time. He does that with
I
Immutable.
do that with Leo, too.
everybody. Like, oh
Okay.
no.
There goes the neighborhood.
Yeah, they just literally just say, there goes the neighborhood.
You got to take it with a grain of. You got to take me with a
hold on.
grain of salt.
Ian,
I always do.
please do not use the who created God argument. It's the dumbest fucking argument ever.
Well, it's stupid because we know the answer to that question already.
Right. Nobody created God.
Well, no, he created him in his own image.
He don't exist. Okay. So anyway, so I went. What else did I do?
What else did you do?
What else did you do?
What else did I do? Well, I have a whole bunch of biosemiotics. Well, for one thing, I went through. Okay, John famously
I'll be right
talks
back.
about
I
the
need some more water.
Royal Society. No duration. So John talks about the Royal Society and that issue they did on biology and information in 2016. And in that entire 21 articles in that issue, they mention intelligent design once. And they do it, let's see, where do they say it here? The prerequisite amount, let's see, I'm trying to find let's see if I can share the screen. There's only one article and it's by Wills. Application window. Let's see, is that Wills? I wonder if that's the one. Yeah, Arista.pdf. Okay, this one. So I think they mentioned intelligent design. Let me see here. Code optimization. Where the hell? Two molecular structures. Psycho. Okay. Entirely arbitrary. Okay. Point of entirely arbitrary and which seems so massively coincidental that some theorists have been led to suppose that the code has an intelligent design of extraterrestrial origin. However, what we will see is that similar base triplets are most likely to end up as codons for amino acids with similar molecular properties, not through some process of code optimization, but simply because each step in the progressive differentiation of coding arguments had to preserve the functionality that had already been established. And then it goes on to say, let's see, I'm not sure if the rest of it. In fact, the information-rich coding is only possible in natural systems that hit upon some operationally encoded definition of similarity, no matter how rough and ready initially, and then progressively refine it, most likely through transitions over a series of discrete steps. So right here in the articles that he claims support his position, the only place they even mention design is this one article by Wills. And I'm not sure if let's see if I can show you which article it is. This one, and that's from the Royal Society Publishing, Peter F.R. Wills, Generation of Meaningful Information in Molecular Systems. But John goes nuts when he sees this part. That's all he needs, that sort of thing.
The abstract is a really useful part of a paper because it tells you everything what the paper discovered and not at all describing the background of the paper.
I actually, funny that you mentioned that, because I was on Pal Talk a couple nights ago, and in the room there is a PhD biologist who works actually in a lab. And I was posting a bunch of papers demonstrating all the viable pathways to how life potentially could have developed on a prebiotic Earth. And the guy that I was arguing against did nothing but say, well, I mean, if you look at the methodologies, they got to do all this purification, and there's all these different steps that they have to do to get everything just right. And the one guy, I don't know what his actual name is, but his username is Dr. M. Dell. He straight said, yeah, I have to do this all the time in like almost every experiment that I do, and I don't do anything that relates to the origin of life. This isn't new stuff in a lab. This says nothing about the paper. This does not remove the merits of what the paper shows us at all. That's not how experiments work. And so when these creationists attack those arguments, well, they had to do all this purification and selection and in vitro evolution, yada, yada. It literally doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And it shows you how little they actually know about the experimentation process.
Yeah.
So I went searching my biosemiotics books and information and biology books, and I searched for intelligent design, and I only found a few references to it. Like,
were they positive or negative?
There was one theology and theology book where they said we should be agnostic, which I think they're probably correct in that. But anyway, this one, information and the nature of reality, hence the idea of intelligent design, not only fails to fit the requirements of science, but it also fails theologically by its embarrassment about the contingency in nature. And I don't know how he came to that. It's up here. It fails to see the universe can be deeply informational without being designed. So that hardly supports John's position, right?
Oh, exactly.
So, and these are the people that he constantly refers to, that he gets all of his basic, fuel from. And then let's see, there's another one, Codes of Life, Rules of Macroevolution by Barbieri, and it doesn't mention intelligent design at all. And then there is, let's see, Information and Living Systems. They mention intelligent design. briefly. Let me see here. Application window. So let me see. Right here, they mention it in 2 articles that they reference. God and the Devil, and a critique of intelligent design theory by Shanks. And then also, what do we got here? Self-organization and the origin of complexity and why intelligent design fails. Basically,
I have a question now. Speed. Can I go through some of my sources that talk about this? And all these are sources that talk about like DNA as literally being a code and these things literally being like language and all that stuff. So Advancing Health Literacy, a framework for understanding and action by Christina Zarkadoulis and Andrew Pleasant, David Escrier, John Wiley and Sons, April 15, 2009 on page 192. They say that, yeah, these are just metaphors. They're very dominant metaphors. They've been a part of it since about the 50s. There's a Stanford University Press little review of a book called Who Wrote the Book of Life? A History of the Genetic Code by Lily E.K., where they say that in the book, she specifically says that these are nothing but metaphors that have been very, very deeply woven into the to biology and to the field of biology, so that lay people tend to take it literally when the vast majority of professionals don't. And then when Genes Became Information by Matthew Cobb, I believe that was written in I think that might have been written in the 50s. They say exactly the same thing, that these are just metaphors, and that, I mean, just one particular codus. However, it is easy to forget that this is a figure of speech rather than being literally true, end quote. And then the machining, the meanings of the gene, Public Debate About Human Heredity by Celeste Michelle Condent, says exactly the same thing, that these are just metaphors that have been deeply woven into the language of biology and that they aren't to be taken literally. You've got Code Between Operation and Narration, which says the exact same thing. You've got Communicating Novel and Conventional Scientific Metaphors, a study of the development of the metaphor of genetic code. I mean, the title there is pretty obvious. And then I actually have an article from Oxford Academic called Genetic Coding Reconsidered, an analysis of actual usage, where they say exactly the same thing, that these are all analogies. Indeed, these are all academic, scholarly sources, just like what Speed shared, all attesting the same exact thing.
So Leo, you're still not understanding that 64 codons are literally amino acids.
Literally none of this addresses any of what me or Speed said.
That is what the genetic code does. And Dimitri proved you wrong, and you still are not understanding this.
No, we didn't.
Angela, let's go back to the basic. Hold on. Let's go back to the basic point.
I said.
Let's go back to the basic point. Is it the DNA itself that actually does anything in terms of the fidelity of the protein and its end product?
Who has claimed that?
No, I'm asking the question. I'm not saying anybody's claimed that.
Well, so why are you asking the question if nobody has made that claim?
It's a simple question, Otangelo.
Because he doesn't know if anybody made the claim.
Okay, DNA is just a information storing molecule. That's it.
Okay, good. So how is it a code then?
Because the genetic code is the assignment of 61 codons and 3 stop and start signs codons to 20 amino acids. That cipher is the genetic code. And if you guys have still not understood this, then go, take a biology book and study basic biology.
The people who have taken the classes disagree with you.
The interesting thing is I have, and what the genetic code is describing is a process, right? It's not describing any one thing. It's describing the process of DNA transcription, it's describing the process of its replication, and it's also describing how it's translated. It's not describing any one thing. Because any one of those things is not a code.
The genetic code is simply an assignment of codons to amino acids. That's it.
Right, and that's facilitated by RNA.
So, and that is in a literal sense an assignment. It's not in a metaphorical sense.
What does the word assignment mean?
That you, Leo, still are not getting this is telling.
Well, it's because your argument.
Here's the fundamental issue that's being had there. Is if it's a literal assignment, right, and this is to actually.
Even Demeter explains that. Ask Demeter, he's in the room. Demeter, is that in a literal sense the assignment of codons to amino acids, yes or no?
Well, let me answer that question first, and then I'll let Demeter give his own answer. Because if RNA, like if we consider tRNA to be an actual code, right? If it's acting as...
I did not say that tRNA is an actual code. I said that the assignment of codons to amino acids is a cipher or a code.
How are codons expressed in cells, Otangelo? Mainly tRNAs. So the point you're making or trying to nail me on here is really semantical. But
no,
again,
I am describing literal facts in biology. This is not semantical.
But they don't prove it.
In that case, let me ask this question. Is the RNA itself, the tRNA that binds with the ribosome, actually doing anything in terms of catalyzing the reaction of an amino acid to join another amino acid?
It is just the adapter molecule which is recognized by the amino acid tRNA synthetase, which knows which amino acid that has to be charged and added to the polypeptide chain, and it adds to it, and then the tRNA is put into position to in order for the peptidyl transferase center making the reaction of the elongation of the amino acids chain.
Good. So it's actually the actual interaction that's occurring, the actual nature of the coding is actually between a protein and a tRNA. And curiously enough, if you read Demeter's papers, he describes a very similar thing, of very small peptides interacting with RNA molecules to facilitate a reaction that is very similar to the activity of aminoacylases and aminotransferases.
Can I make an analogy for Otangelo? Does the electron cloud of an atom assign its chemical reaction, its ability to react with other elements?
We are talking about biochemistry, not
yes, I literally said I was going to present an analogy. You must have missed it when I said that. So let me ask again. Does the electron cloud of an atom assign how it reacts with other atoms?
No analogies are required in this case.
The funny thing is that when people don't want to answer hypotheticals or analogies, they do it because they know that answering it will reveal underlying potentially problems with how they look at things, and they don't want to make that obvious. So I'll try one more time. Does the electron cloud of an atom assign how the atom interacts with other atoms?
Demeter already schooled you, Leo, that the assignment is not metaphorical, but it is in a literal sense. Because you are still not understanding the topic.
Like creation,
even if you think the question is irrelevant, you can give a yes or no instead of just refusing to answer. And if you don't know, just say I don't know.
Well, I've not even listened to his point, so I don't know.
Well, do you think that's respectful if people were to not listen to you or your points and just completely ignore it?
Well, it shows he's not here to learn. He's here to preach.
Well, what are you have still not learned after so many times, Leo, that the assignment of amino acids to the mRNA is literal.
tRNA.
I never said that the assignment isn't literal. The whole point of me asking my analogy. Let's try this one more time. Does the electron cloud of the atom, does it assign how that atom will interact with other atoms?
I'm not considering your point, Leo. It's
exactly
irrelevant to the point.
It's so funny, and this is typical creationist dodging. You're tap dancing as your buddy standing strangling the truth. Yeah, you are, because you're not
still not getting that you are still making a moot and irrelevant and actually false point, and
no,
you're
not.
still
how do
not
you
getting
know?
it.
No,
after even Demeter schooled you on that.
No, we didn't.
How do you know what? How do you know what Leo's point is going to be if you refuse to indulge the point?
Well, because you're still claiming that we are talking about something which is metaphorical when it is not.
I never said that.
Okay, guys.
I'm here. I literally just asked the question.
That's what I am answering to, because you came up with that nonsense again.
Can I say something? Just 1 second. So Otangelo is correct in one thing. What is the actual code. And he was completely correct to say that the genetic code is assignment of 61 codons to 20 amino acids. That is correct. There is no something that it's not correct, and this is the code. So it's totally different question how this code is evolved and how this code and what actually it's described, right?
Okay, so you are confirming what I am saying. Leo, are you still going to assert that we are talking about this issue in a metaphorical sense, or
What,
did
DNA
we need
being
to
a code?
correct you right now?
DNA being a code? Yeah,
I've
that's
never said that DNA is a code. I just answered
well,
to
that's what I
immutable
was originally
that
talking
DNA
about. So then why did you even bring
Well,
up this
then
point?
you are
That's
actually
what I
never
was thinking
addressing
you were
what
talking
is being talked
Yeah,
about.
but
You're
you
bringing
brought
up
up a point
completely
that doesn't relate to
irrelevant
something I was talking
points.
about. Why did you bring it up? I was talking about specifically DNA being a code, and then you piped in. But if that wasn't the claim you were making,
I've
why
never
did you
claimed
pipe
that DNA
in?
is a
Okay, so
code.
then
I
why did you
always
pipe
said
in?
that.
Why did you pipe in?
No, you
I was
are
talking about
actually
DNA being a
always
code.
making these claims
No,
which
no,
are
no, no. I
irrelevant.
said that DNA wasn't a code. You said you were never saying that it was, but you're the one that initially responded to what I said. So if what I was referring to was not the claim that you made, then why did you even fucking respond?
I again try to correct you because you're bringing up a talking point which is completely irrelevant.
So you are saying that DNA is the code. So you're saying that DNA is
I've
a
never
code.
said that.
Okay, but that's what
I've
I was
never
talking
said
about.
And
So
why?
I was talking
And
about
why?
something that you
Why
have not
if it
asserted.
is
Why
if it is irrelevant? It's
that
irrelevant.
DNA is a code
That's
because
the whole point.
well, it's relevant because you said that's not the point you're making.
It's neither I nor John Maddox nor any creationist is making that point.
No,
But
literally, John Maddox says DNA
literally
is a code.
you are literally
You're wrong.
strawmanning
You're
what
wrong.
we are
No,
saying,
that's
and we are
literally-
simply saying what
Pull
time
back up
says.
his
argument. Pull back up his argument where he literally makes the argument that DNA is a code. John is saying that. Otangelo might not be, but what I'm trying to ascertain is what I listed all my sources, and he immediately jumped in. All my sources and everything I said was relating to whether or not DNA was literally a code. Otangelo has admitted like 5 times now he has never made the claim that it is. Well, then I was talking about it. He wasn't making claims to what I was talking about. Then why did he respond to what I was talking about?
LPP has made
DNA stores a genetic code. And if LPP claims that DNA is a code, then I disagree with him.
Okay, then you guys disagree.
Well, good. Then there's no point in that argument then, because that the claim of
that's
LPP
my
is that
point.
DNA
There
is
is
the
no
literal code.
argument. There is no argument to be made here.
So what is the argument, Otangelo?
The argument is that an assignment of meaning from, in our case, from the messenger RNA of the triple codons to amino acids, that assignment cannot be the result of non-intelligent, random, unguided natural events. That
How do you
is the
know?
point.
Already it's a straw man then.
So this is wrong.
Then already it's off to.
Demonstrate why it's wrong.
Well, first of all, some of your presumptions that you're making are incorrect.
I can put to the syllogism here so you can criticize
I
it.
am not concerned about the syllogism, like you said earlier. I'm actually interested in the hard science. And when you say something is undirected and unguided in the field of chemistry, that's not at all correct, because there are principles by which chemicals react and affiliate with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, immutable. If the sequence of nucleotides is
I'll
not
be right
free and unconstrained, then you cannot have an information-bearing molecule. And I explained that to you in our last
sure you
talk.
can. The issue is that you can, because the type of code we're describing is just one of many, right? What we're describing in terms of DNA, right? I can agree with you that DNA acts as a way of as being used essentially as a way of translating between two sets of chemicals. And the thing is that even if DNA is not there, right, the function of DNA isn't to facilitate any kind of chemical binding or interaction. It's to serve as a way to transcribe RNA that's complementary and that will bind with the ribosome in order to facilitate the process of amino isolation, right? So even if you don't have DNA, when it concerns itself with the origin of life, this is an irrelevant point. Because it's not DNA that's actually responsible for the overall process. It's merely acting as a cipher between the mRNA and the tRNA.
Between anticodon and
between anticodon
particular amino acid. So the link between anticodon, which is part of the tRNA, and the particular amino acid, this is the code.
So how was this established? That's the key issue here.
By doing real science.
The most logical explanation is to...
So let me briefly, of course, I cannot repeat the entire paper that I wrote for origin of genetic code, but let me briefly say, you don't need to have every single particular amino acid to be assigned to start a stable process, to have a stabilization as a process. Also, you don't need to have a tricodon formation immediately. Everything you need is just some sort of rule or interaction between the particular sequence of RNA, which leads to amino acylation of particular amino acid. And this is easy to explain. It is explainable. Also, there is a many evidence that there is evolution of the genetic code. So the evidence is coming from the codon-anticodon interactions. So if you have codon-anticodon interactions,
why should there be codon-anticodon interactions at all, Dimitar? Why should that state of affairs emerge from a pool of random chemicals on a prebiotic curve?
Something we're all interested in.
This is two questions. So first question is direct. Why should you have codon-anticodon interaction? Because you have a translation molecule. You have a messenger.
No. At that stage, you don't have that. And why should there even be translation molecules there?
Tangelo, I understand where you're coming from, but if you're people interrupting you, would you please let Demeter finish?
Let me finish the sentence. Because you have a translation between one type of polymer to another type of polymer. One type of polymer is RNA, and the other type of polymer is peptide or protein. Therefore, this is the nature of these two different polymers is different. So you can use Watson-Crick base pairs in order to make this translation as a process. However, you also need a mechanism which links any particular specific amino acid to the specific anticodon. And this is done by amino acyl synthetases. This is the actual enzymes which knows the genetic code by itself. So so the second question that you ask is why? Why that happened? Because it is more stable situation. Simply that.
Can I answer to that?
Ability.
You are already mentioning extremely complex proteins. Amino acid tRNA synthetases are extremely complex proteins. tRNAs are also extremely complex molecules which require an extremely complex biosynthesis and biogenesis process, and you know that. So if you are not starting right from the beginning, Dimitar, and explaining where these molecules came from, how and why they were synthesized prebiotically, then you cannot simply start your narrative in the middle of the thing and then say, oh, all these molecules were already there and started to make translation. And even if they were there, why should they even start to make recognition of codon and anticodon? Why should they even start to make translation? molecules do not have the urge to do all these things and these
Just
hyperly
physics.
complex things.
He
Yeah.
answered your question already because it causes chemical stability to be enforced.
Well, these molecules, they were not simply laying around prebiotically. tRNAs are complex
shit.
molecules.
No,
Amino acid tRNA synthetases are very complex, even internally signaling performing proteins. These
Yes.
are complex proteins which also require an explanation how they came about.
Yes, and the fundamental thing is that they can also be produced, so ribose and other sugars can also be produced prebiotically. It's been demonstrated time and time again under a variety of different conditions.
So can I explain? So you present in front of the auditorium a wrong model. You simply said you must have highly complicated protein in order to have translation, which is a wrong model. We and never scientist was working on this model. We never used that model. We said usually the scientific point of view, evolutionary point of view, is you can start the process from much simple moleculars. And that because you have a process of selection, you can upgrade and complicate this process. In fact, just a very short peptide can do a bias and to put the correct amino acids in the correct RNA. That's good enough to start the process. You don't need a huge and highly developed protein. That's it.
Might I say something since we're on the topic of proteins and tRNA and things like that? There's actually a really good paper from PNAS, Publications of the National Academy of Sciences, by David P. Horning and Gerald F. Joyce, published on August 15, 2016, Amplification of RNA by an RNA polymerase ribozyme. And in this paper, they state the following, quote, "The improved polymerase ribozyme is able to synthesize a variety of complex structured RNAs, including aptamers, ribozymes, and in low yield, even tRNA. Furthermore, the polymerase can replicate nucleic acids, amplifying short RNA templates by more than 10,000-fold in an RNA catalyzed form of the PCR. Thus, the two prerequisites of Darwinian life, the replication of genetic information and its conversion into functional molecules, can now be accomplished with RNA in the complete absence of proteins." End quote. And I can link that in the side chat. We've done this in the fucking laboratory.
By the way, I've been displaying works from biosemiotics by Wills and Patty and who else? Paul Davies and a number of others, and very few of them do anything but basically take a dump on intelligent design. And
I wonder why.
And these are all the books that John Maddox claims he knows all about, right? And none of them agree with him. Not one of them agree with him. Not one paper anywhere. I mean, he pulls out David Abel and some other ideas that, you know.
Well, the point of that is the point he's trying to make isn't supported by any academic endeavor at all.
So what?
Well,
it means it's not
the
a good
point
idea.
is,
Right.
The entire point of Tangelo, and it's kind of ironic, is that logical, plausible, probable's whole stick is that the science supports what he's trying to do.
Right. This is where he got the information, Otangelo,
And
from these people.
And that simply is not
the
correct.
evidence and the science is one thing. Where it leads, that is a philosophical question.
No, it's
and of
not.
course,
No,
of course
it's
it
not.
is.
No,
If
unfortunately
you
not.
want-
Scientific method.
If you want to explain how all these things originated, that is a philosophical question because we
No,
do
it's
not
not.
have a time
No, it can
machine
be
to
explored
go back
scientifically.
and see how these things came about.
Not philosophers
don't
doing
need
this.
to.
Like the paper
Unfortunately,
that I listed.
Tangelo, it can be that question is one that's explored to be able to be explored scientifically.
Yes.
Much like the question of asking who killed Sally.
Well, the thing is, in the paper that I just linked, PNAS is a scientific journal reaching these conclusions, not a philosophical one. And the two names that I listed, David Horning and Gerald Joyce, are scientists, not philosophers. The origins of life is a scientific question. Now, I'm not denying that there's philosophy surrounding it. Like, well, is it intelligent design? Is it all natural? Of course, there's you can pretty much make philosophy about any question, but whether or not it's answered in a verifiable and empirical manner by philosophy, no, I would say that would be science, at
So
least in this particular
let's say
instance.
one thing. As a scientific field, as a science, you cannot just stay on a level hypothesis. So
Exactly.
you need experiment. So I'm predicting right now here, I'm predicting there will be experiment which will demonstrate in principle, proof of principle, that the beginning of primitive translation is possible. It's feasible to happen naturally. That is the experiment which is missing. Oh, but it will come.
Yeah, we will see, Dimitar. I mean, prediction is obviously only confirmed when the experiment has been done and then demonstrated. But I keep claiming the ribosome is an extremely complex factory made of multiple parts, which also have to require an explanation how they came about by themselves. Neither of the parts have function that is in regards of tRNA, amino acyl tRNA synthetases, the recognition particle, the ribosome itself, the subparts of the ribosome, of the mRNA. None of these single individual parts have any function. They have only function when they are assembled in the right, correct manner all together. And even if you have a fully functional ribosome, but you do not have DNA and the genetic code, then that ribosome would be entirely meaningless and for no function at all. So you need all these things all at once in order to have function. And you need foresight in order to know what you actually want to achieve with all that kind of high-tech technology.
No, and this is where I think the argument falls apart, because one can easily say that it's quite possible that early organisms, that Luca and similar organisms like Luca, in the very beginning were using RNA as a genetic, that RNA was sufficient in order to be used as a template for storing and replicating genetic information. So, but the other, well, okay, I was going to address this claim about the tRNA, but that's fine.
Well, finish first, and I'll continue after that.
Yeah, but the other point is that there are multiple analyses done of the ribosome and its subcomponents that show that, yes, in fact, the ribosome can be reduced into a very basic region of it that's responsible for the stabilization, for the main function of the ribosome. And it's not a very long sequence.
So, according to the Otangulus hypothesis, you cannot eliminate anything from the ribosome and will not function at all. So, if you remove something from the ribosome, will not function at all.
Remove tRNAs and see if the ribosome will function.
Well, but we're not talking about the tRNAs that are responsible for anticodon binding. We're talking about RNA strands that affiliate with other structures in the tRNA to stabilize it.
Okay, the peptidyl transferase immutable. The peptidyl transferase center ribosome has 2,900 RNAs. That is already a huge molecule. And if you do not have the precise sequence just of that, you have no function. But even if you have just that, and you do not have the other parts which are required for translation, you have nothing.
Okay, but the issue, Otangelo, is that of that 2,900 whatever number you just listed, what fraction of that sequence is actually responsible for the binding between the anticodon and the codon? I would guess probably about 10 to 15.
Well, the binding between the codon, the binding between the codon and the anticodon happens between the messenger RNA and the tRNA. The peptidyl transferase center is just like the house where all these where the reaction is happening. It has nothing to do with the binding of the codon with the anticodon.
Well, and that's kind of the point now, isn't it?
Well, what is your point?
Well, the point here is that what's required is that the chemical reaction can take place. So as long as you can have binding between anticodon and
Can you
codon,
put me my paper, sharing paper?
yeah, the point here, Angelo, is that this reaction will take place as long as the anticodon and codon binding is able to occur. The other part,
first of all, you need to have. First of all, you need to have these 2,900 RNAs
Angelo, are all okay?
stick
Hold on,
together to form a peptidine center.
Are all 2,934 of those nucleotides participating in the anticodon codon recognition?
No, they are not. They are not participating at all because that's not the function of it.
Okay, but so the point is that what's required for it to occur, though, is the recognition between the anticodon and the codon. That is what allows the facilitation of that chemical reaction. Not all 2,934 whatever number you just generated.
But Angelo, do you see this paper?
Yes.
This is your answer.
Well, my answer is no.
No, this is your answer here.
Yes, and I will reply to that paper with no, it is not possible.
Paper? So this paper shows clearly that the PTC center is completely feasible to came spontaneously.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
so how do they know that?
I guess if you read the paper, Angelo, it might answer that question.
Well, Dimitri answered the question.
It might actually be the case.
Why, if they were not able even to stick 40 RNAs together, and you claim that prebiotically the 2,900 RNAs polymerized? Wow.
Who said 2,000? Who said
2,000? Who said anything about 2,932? You're saying that that's the bare minimum. Not me.
PTC center is not that big. The actual PTC
Okay,
center.
so let's suppose that you have that transferase center. What function does it have if you do not have the genetic code, tRNAs, and messenger RNA?
Angelo. The same function the PTC center has always had.
It will have no function without the other parts.
No, it doesn't. The reason it's called an addition is because the PTC center has a function of its own.
Oh yeah, what function does it have?
Combines with other function with other RNA sequences. Excuse me, I'm still talking.
Okay.
And when that RNA sequence combines with other RNA sequences, the ability of that RNA sequence gains new functions by virtue of those interactions.
Okay, first of all, what function would that peptidine transferase have? That sequence of 2,900 amino acids, you can put even less if you do not have translation, because you require the other parts in order to have translation, and you require also the genetic code.
It's a beautiful question, and this is why Google exists. Function
okay.
PTC center.
Well, I can answer the question. I can give you the answer.
In its essentiality, you don't even know what its function is.
Well, I don't ask you because I don't know. I'm asking you to see if you actually have an answer, and obviously you don't.
I'm asking if you know the function of the PTC center, and
is it me or did Immutable just cut out?
What just happened?
Can I answer?
Yeah, he cut out.
Wait, hold on. Yeah, you cut out Immutable. Reiterate what you said.
Yeah, what I was essentially saying is that if you understand that the PTC...
What the fuck, dude? It must be God.
Dude, I swear to fucking God.
Don't swear to God. He might be the one doing it. You never know.
Your mic is muted. Speed.
Fuck.
Got it.
Okay, guys.
It'll be like 5 seconds.
Okay, go ahead. 5 seconds. And
I
have something to say.
The point is that, Angelo, if you agree already that the PTC center is not that long, and that its function is dictated by a much shorter sequence, why are you insisting that all the other parts must be needed for that function to process.
Why would the prebiotic Earth produce such a complex molecule with 2,900
Oh, Jesus.
RNAs?
It wouldn't.
If it has, if it
wouldn't.
has,
Answer the question. Just
That is
ramble
your
on with
claim,
your
not
relative-
ours. Nobody here has said that the prebiotic Earth would say that 2,934 whatever number is what was prebiotically generated.
okay,
You're
so what was generated?
Theoretical complexity is that.
Okay, so what was generated then, Immutable?
A small
The
complex.
necessary sequence for the PTC center.
Well, I mean, I don't know what would be the minimal sequence in order to have the pocket
You
where
just
the
said you
reaction
did, not 5
happens.
seconds ago, Otangelo. You just claimed that you did. You said that you understood, and you were trying to test me on what the PTC center's length is and what its function was.
Okay,
Those were
what
your
I
words, not
said.
mine.
Okay, listen. What I said is following. Even if you have a PTC center, if you do not have the reaction there and the other parts required for the reaction, then there is absolutely no reason why such a complex molecule would emerge prebiotically.
Yes, there is, and I can give you the reason. The reason is, and it's kind of like the point the meter's been making the whole damn time, is that if there are other RNA sequences which can bind with this sequence, there is the potential that this other sequence can stabilize it, and thus rigidifying it and causing the reaction to occur more often. That is the reason why this type of interaction and this type of growth to the PTC center would occur.
Well, you won't have a PTC center just with a few amino acids and a few RNAs sticking together.
Why? What is the actual length of the PTC center, Angelo? Since you seem to be so hard pressed on this,
It is the place where the
that's
the
not what I asked.
reaction
I asked you how long is the PTC center in the ribosome.
about 2,900 RNAs.
No, I didn't ask about the ribosome. I said the PTC center.
I said it's about 2,900 RNAs.
I am almost certain that is not correct.
It is correct.
Would you mind linking a source that claims that the length of the PTC center, the center which is required for that catalysis, is 2,934
Yeah,
long?
go ahead, search for it. I just did read it today. Or maybe Dimitar, which is better informed, can either confirm it or tell me what the real size is, what the real length is.
Here's another paper back in 1995, which demonstrated clearly amino acid synthesis, RNA catalyzed by RNA. It's a very small RNA and still perform amino acylation and peptidyl transferation. In vitro, of course, but it's proof of principle. So you don't need a huge complex to have a synthesis of peptide. As simple as that.
Okay, so
That's what
The answer is less than 2,934.
it seems Speed wants to talk. Speed, do you want to talk? Talk.
Then unmute your damn self.
I'm unmuted. I just wanted to say no direction has been sitting here patiently before we got sidetracked on all of this. And I just want to know, are you willing to sit here patiently for longer or?
Oh, sure. No, I'm enjoying
I
myself.
I can mute
okay,
myself.
okay,
You guys
okay.
can talk. Or I can
No.
leave, no problem.
Okay, I just wanted to make a note that no direction is going to want to get in at some point, and please let us know if you if you want to rage quit. So anyway, you two go on. Otangelo, Immutable, go for it.
I mean, my point's been made. Angelo thinks we need all 2,934, and clearly that's not correct.
Oh, that's not correct. Okay, Dimitar can confirm it, or he can correct me
He
if you
just
want.
said,
I
did you not listen to what he just said?
So
Okay, I can Google it and then I can confirm it to you. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna Google it.
Ask the PhD molecular biologist, and then when he doesn't agree with you, well, let me go to Google.
So
Well,
when he
did you disagree, Dimitar? Did
So
you disagree, Dimitar?
First, I showed you that the process of peptidyl transferase do not need a huge structure. Very small RNA could do it. That's just experimentally, I just showed you by paper.
I think
second, you see
You are answering a different question, Dimitar. The question
No,
was,
not.
what is the size of the current
he just said it didn't have to be
peptidyl
big.
transferase center? That was the question.
He just said it didn't have to be big.
He just said it didn't have to be 2,934.
Potential, you don't need even to have PTC center to have peptidyl transferase event. Do you understand that?
Well, I can study it. You can give me the papers
You
and I
don't
will
need
have a
to
look.
have peptidyl transferase. You don't need to have peptidyl transferase center from the ribosome.
Okay, if we don't need it, then I don't even know why life has made such a hyper-complex translation machinery.
Evolution.
Okay.
That's how.
Okay. Whatever you say, Dimitar. I mean, to me, this sounds not plausible because I told you many times evolution starts with DNA replication, and there was no DNA replication at this
Does it, though?
stage.
Who said that?
Well, I can give you many links if you want. I have an entire article at my
Evolution
library
started-
about it. Even Kunin says it. Do you want me to quote it? I can quote it to you.
Okay, but I can say something. You didn't read carefully enough.
Okay, I
What
will
has
just
been
quote
told
you
you-
Kunin, The Logic of Chance, page 246.
Just listen to me for a while.
Okay.
So, based on the RNA world hypothesis, the actual origin of life became because of the replication of RNA, self-replication of RNA. This is based on RNA world hypothesis. That's what you're trying to say, not DNA, RNA. Probably you heard that, not DNA.
I have not claimed DNA. We are talking about RNA. I'm
Okay.
very well aware of that, Dimitar.
So, I'm saying here that that's not accurate. Well, so there is a new hypothesis. The science is development. The science is always it's kind of coming new ideas always in the science. Sometimes very good hypothesis might not be correct. I don't think RNA world hypothesis is correct hypothesis for origin of life. So, in simple word to say, at the moment when RNA start to determine peptide, life began. That's simple as that.
Okay, that's your definition. If you go with that, I mean, that's up with you. I don't recognize life just
That's
as
my definition.
at that stage. Okay.
And and also that happened because it's more stable situation. Also proven experimentally.
The ribosome is the most that the ribose is the most unstable sugar. Why did natural selection choose that one?
Because makes a fault. It makes a very good single strand faults. After that, you have a very nice hairpin structures which can interact and make Watson-Crick base pairs and make a high complicated structures. Now, when you say it's not stable, what do you mean not stable?
How do you know how many days that it takes to disintegrate?
You can have RNA for 1 month without disintegration. It depends on the condition.
Yeah.
Where you put it. If you
ribose is, so as far as I know, about 40 days and it disintegrates.
So if you put this particular RNA in acidic conditions, it might stay for a very, very long time. Simply RNA is not stable in alkali conditions, but it's heavily stable in acidic conditions. That is also, if you have peptide, to interact with RNA, that will stabilize it much, much more. So,
Okay.
simple and very small need to start and to kick off origin of life.
So go ahead from there. How do you go further from that?
Once you have Darwinian evolution in action, everything is explainable by definition, because you can go from short peptide, you can go to much bigger peptide, and this is stabilized form. Now, because of the selection, they have a function. And because of the function, they will be selected for more advantageous forms. So, short peptide, motif, domain, bigger peptide, longer peptide, and finally you have proteins. So, that's how it works. At the same time, you have coevolution of tRNA, mRNA, and ribosomal RNA. Everything is co-evolving step by step in a micro steps, and every single step makes a more stable and more stable form. What about the RNA replication? RNA replication actually became by non-enzymatic GC replication, which is just a template polymerization based on polymerization over the template. Experimentally shown, it's possible, it's feasible. And after that, you need just a little bit longer peptide, which holds 2 magnesium or bivalent ions, which will facilitate the polymerization. Every modern DNA-dependent or RNA-dependent polymerases, which extend template extension and makes the replication, contains in the catalytic center 2 or 3 magnesium ions. That's it.
Well, Dimitar, I don't have much to say about that, besides that I know the complexity to make each of the molecules which you have mentioned, in special the ribosome, of course, but also tRNAs. There is a very complex biogenesis synthesis process.
So
That is in regards of each of the molecules we are talking about. There would be absolutely no reason for this biosynthesis process, even just of tRNAs, to emerge prebiotically in order to have tRNAs which by themselves would have absolutely no function unless they are fully integrated in a full functional and working ribosome.
Oh, Tangelo, how do you know that? Were you there?
So to say no reason, that means you said that if something is more stable, will not stay longer. That's what you say.
Well, maybe Speed, I can give you a link about biosynthesis of tRNAs, and there are many proteins
I don't think I need that. I think I have a couple books on
I
that.
just
but
explained.
Okay.
were you there? I mean, how do you know that was the?
Well,
How do
but
you know
the
that was a condition 3.5 billion years ago, 3 billion years ago?
Well,
I
we want to explain how all these things emerged, correct?
Of course, that's what
So
scientists are working on.
Yeah, so that's the question. And my question is,
Well, what do you
if
want
you
the
have-
answer right
so-
now?
So my question is, I give an analogy. Let's suppose that you make a complex factory to make solar panels, and you make solar panels, and you do not have the other parts to make actually energy. These solar panels, they are functionless, and that's the same in tRNAs. You can have a complex biosynthesis process to make tRNAs, but these molecules, if there is nothing to do with them, they will just lay around prebiotically and then disintegrate again.
But what if they were continually being produced, just not used for anything?
Why
then
should
all of
that
a
be the case?
I don't know, chemical reactions that produce a chemical that is otherwise inert and doesn't do anything, and then some time passes, and oh look, it's starting to catalyze this other reaction. We're starting to get some more complex chemistry.
You need a fully functional cell to make tRNAs, Leo.
No, you don't. Did you not listen to what I said
Yes, you
earlier?
do.
Really,
Yes,
because
you do.
because I cited an article from the publications of National Academy of Sciences. Let me read it for you again. Quote: the
No,
improved
no.
polymerase ribozyme is able to synthesize a variety of complex structured RNAs, including aptamers, ribozymes, and in low yield, even tRNA. Huh. It's funny. They did that with a polymerase ribozyme. They didn't have a cell.
They did it with the polymerase ribozyme.
Yep.
Okay. And it was a guided process, or it was just something that they let the molecules on their own and they produced tRNAs?
I would assume probably the second, but that question would probably be better asked to Demeter, who's probably familiar with this work and probably.
Yeah, you are not.
Processes.
So you are just parroting something that you don't understand as usual.
Oh no, I understand
Boy,
it.
the irony in that statement is-
Oh my God.
I understand it. He's just asking me about the methodologies of the paper.
Well, I have studied how complex it is to make tRNAs, so
Have
that's
you
my
really?
That's
answer.
cool. You obviously haven't read that much. You didn't know that we've developed a polymerase ribozyme that can make it.
Well, you don't know what I know.
I know you know.
What Immutable? Say that again. Did you say what I think you said?
I don't know what you know, but I know what you don't.
That's what I thought.
Well, whatever, guys. Thank you, Speed, to having me at your channel. It's late here, and I'll have a break. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Thanks for
let's
stopping
get
in.
back.
Bye bye.
Let's get back
Hope
to.
you learned something.
Can
I
I
didn't know we
say
believed-
really quickly? I want to say something really quickly. Today on Facebook, he asked me for specific, and Immutable already knows this because I told him this over a text exchange. He asked me for specific. I made the statement that he's been corrected by people on things numerous times, but hasn't accepted those corrections. And he asked me for specific examples. I think that the entire time he has been in here has been more than one example of that, where I pointed out that there's a polymerase ribozyme that can make tRNAs, and then he states, well, you need a cell to make tRNAs. No, you fucking don't.
Hey, no direction. Do you mind if I display your private chats? Are you still with us? Did you fall asleep? Am I muted?
Is No Direction secretly Nicola?
Yes, Nicola.
What,
Are you with us?
What were you going to say?
Where's Utangelo? Where he went?
Oh, he went away.
Oh, I mean, I guess we
Getting
just
late.
put him too much.
He
I
got tired.
stepped out for a second and he immediately escaped.
I know, we almost had him.
He'll just forget everything we talked about here on next time he's on other people's channels.
Literally, that's what it's going to be.
He'll just say nobody's ever corrected him.
Hey,
Nobody's
Shadic,
ever.
Shadic, can you run this video with the PTC center and the ribosome, how it starts to assemble itself? I remember you was able to run this video. It was very cool, actually.
What was it about?
This video comes from the Lawrence Williams. And
I'm just confused how he thinks that we think that 2,934 length sequences of RNA were produced periodically.
oh my
No direction went in the wrong direction, apparently.
No, I'm back.
Are you back?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I share your private chats?
I'll go for it. That's why I jumped in originally. I was like, well, 200 characters isn't enough to explain why Maddox was wrong in his argument, but
You could write books on why Maddox is wrong with his arguments.
Books he won't read.
like the curious
Wait
thing
a minute.
is right from the
Oh,
start, his
shit.
whole challenge to atheists was present a valid and sound argument. Not a valid and sound argument for anything in particular, just a valid and sound argument.
I'm trying to share the thing. Where are we here? Share screen. I'm incompetent.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Logical, plausible, probable understands what logical even means.
No, he absolutely does not understand
No, he
what a
doesn't.
valid argument is. He certainly has memorized the definition of one, but memorizing it and actually applying what you've learned are two different things. And from all of the arguments that I've seen of the debates that he's been a part of or the videos that have been linked around, he has never been able to construct a valid argument, let alone a sound one. So whether or not he could actually assess an argument that he hasn't encountered before and determine whether or not it's valid or invalid is something that's really suspect. I'm almost tempted to just like issue a challenge to him where there's 3 arguments displayed in symbolic form on a screen and tell me which one is invalid.
Right.
You should also do that with Smokey, by the way, because that happened once. And holy shit, that was
that was painful.
Oh, that was painful. Because he claimed to have studied like logic for like 3 semesters or so in college, and I'm like, oh really? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the problem was that it was just Logic 101. You just had to keep taking it over again.
Don't even in Logic 101, don't they introduce like propositional calculus?
They introduced like the bare bones, like classical theory of validity, which is propositional logic. If you take logic beyond that, you start learning that, well, things like the law of non-contradiction is actually pretty suspect. There might actually be instances where this law doesn't actually apply.
I need to read those books. Currently, currently my mind is being consumed by abstract algebra, which is annoying to try and learn.
Well, it's bullshit. Like Otangelo keeps putting up what he calls syllogisms, and they're not syllogisms. They're just a list of premises and a conclusion, just like Maddox did here. And it's not even a logical argument. It's just it's a bit of rhetoric, you know.
It's a dodge dollop.
It doesn't have any. You don't need predicate logic to just read the rhetoric and see where his mind is going. So I mean, him calling it a logical argument is just shitting on the idea of logic.
Okay, but does his mind go anywhere?
I don't think so. He has these when he's driving late at night. He has these revelations, and he worries me. Like he had a revelation about Trump having won the election.
He has like revelations every other half second. It's like
he does.
I was walking up the stairs carrying 20 cases of water.
I was wondering why my feet knew where to go.
The God glasses are really thick, so
it's like he has these things like on a day-to-day basis apparently, and it's like, okay, do you need help, Maddox? Are you stable in life?
This morning,
I wonder if God holds it or if God shakes it when he goes to the bathroom.
I don't know.
This morning I was watching Loki lick his ass, and I was wondering, how does he do that? I had this revelation.
By the way, Speed, I did want to say, I in no direction can correct me if I'm making mistakes here. I would say that what he has is syllogistic, but I would just say that it doesn't seem to have like an actual structure to it, like in the sense of modus ponens or something like that. It just doesn't. It's syllogistic, but it doesn't seem to have an actual mode of inference into it. It's just kind of some statements and then a conclusion that's really loosely drawn from them. I certainly wouldn't state that it's either valid or sound.
Well, no, it does have a kind of structure to it. Like
okay.
I wrote there in the private chat that you could really assess the first 6 premises as being descriptions of what codes do or what they're subjected to.
Right on.
And that's fine. But you would take all of that in lieu of like where the actual meat of the argument comes in. And that's premises 6, 7, and 8. And those are really the problematic one. Like there's absolutely problems with the content of the first 6 premises, because if we take these as universal statements about all codes, and these are all features that anything considered a code has to exemplify, does Morse code fit that description?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's that. The problems I have is like he sticks in before information transmitted. He starts dropping and shit, and then this thing about foreknowledge, and then and then he just jumps.
Yeah, well, the foreknowledge thing is already there. that assumes that
Right
an
there.
intelligent agent is required, and so that just makes it begging the question.
Begging the question, right?
You may as well have just summarized the entire thing by saying all codes are the product of a mind. DNA is a code, therefore DNA is a product of a mind. At least then it would be concise and it would be a valid structure. It just wouldn't be demonstrably sound yet. He would have to do a lot more work because even at best there, all he's done is made a prediction, and he still has to actively go out and verify that.
Can I quote directly one of your comments here in the private chat, just because I
Sure.
think it's just...
Now you can read anything that I write in the private chat. I don't care.
So he says, furthermore, if we accept that there is a sense wherein chemical sequences can be appropriately called a code, then being the product of intelligence doesn't appear to be the rule, but they are the exception. Arguing from the exception isn't merely an error born out of the limited experience or understanding of an individual, but it's a fallacy in its own right. That is just so fucking succinct.
Well, it is too, because there is a sense that you say that the genetic code is a literal code.
Mm-hmm.
But if you use that particular definition, then a single molecule of water is a code.
Yes.
Okay.
Tree rings are a code.
But
Virtually everything
Yeah,
that we
any
encounter
chemical.
is a code.
Yeah, any
And
chemical.
the codes that we know are designed, the things that we see are the direct product of intelligence, are no longer the rule of what defines something as a code. In fact, being the product of an intelligence is the exception. There's something about those particular codes that distinguishes them from the other ones that we can say that's what makes them the products.
But what is the
really
purpose?
Ass backwards there.
What is the purpose of saying it's a literal code? Why is that adjective
Human
important?
perspective.
Well, the reason for that is
it's-
that code typically is associated with language. And when we talk about codes, we're talking about Morse code, or we're talking about ciphers like the languages in the Dragon Age series of those video games.
So if you say it's a literal code, then you're also begging the question with that.
There's an assumption there normally that a code is something that is actively and intentionally designed by thinking agents for a particular end.
Yes.
And so that's where the objection really comes in. And normally the way that the code arguments would go is that it would go from saying the genetic code is a literal code to it is analogous to a language. We know that languages are the products of intelligence, and then they draw the inference that if all of these other codes and all these other languages come from minds, then it stands to reason, for the sake of consistency, that if this thing has these relevant properties, it should also be the result of something qualitatively similar, namely a mind.
But the problem is that we have one example, and that is DNA of something that we do not know there was an intelligence involved in.
Mm-hmm.
So well, it's not only that, it's that the experiments carried out on just particular biological sequences, whether or not they can arise, don't involve any foreknowledge or foresight or intention behind it. It's just we set up the experiment and see what the hell happens. And lo and behold, we get these sequences and we get these codes. And so they stand as a counterexample in that respect. But also the issue is you can list a lot of similarities between two things. But what really matters is how relevant those similarities are to the inference you're drawing.
I think you can so you can say like this: genetic code. The genetic code is actually designed by selection forces. You can say it this way, for example. It still will be valid, but you have selection forces. So it is designed by selection forces. You can say it that way, if it prefer for someone.
Well, the design aspect seems to imply that there's something that's directing that particular type of genetic code over others that could have formed.
Yeah, because it's direction. So the selection forces are direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, but couldn't you also argue that if the formation of the genetic code, well, I guess you could say, if the nucleotides for the genetic code were arbitrarily chosen, which is a big assumption, right?
Yes.
can you really say that there is like an aspect of design for the genetic code being the way it is?
Well, I mean, what the current model is that they are not chosen. They was there.
Right. They happen to be there, and
It happened to be there, exactly. So you have a combinations which is just trapped in a particular sequence with particular amino acids. So this is the so-called incident model from. This is the first hypothesis for origin of life, which is coming from Francis Crick. However, it is not correct in a global scale. I think this model for the incidental selection of the code is correct in terms of smaller scale, not the entire code. So it's not randomized, but it's selected from the sequences that was there available. So I think that's it.
I'd agree.
Also, everybody should read the last thing that if Speed could get rid of the fucking highlighted comment that No Direction put there, or you can scroll up and read it in the section. If you read it where it says we further observed in group Y, the D is supposed to be separate, so it reads and we further observe D in group Y. It's the only clarification I need to give, because that also was put very, very beautifully and succinctly.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I found hilarious too. Is that if
And
you
it sucks,
just look at
because
if you look at the structure of his argument, well, no, it's the way that he says he doesn't want anything to do with metaphor, nothing with analogy. He just wants a valid and sound argument. And if you actually look at the structure of the argument that he's presenting, it's an argument by analogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's still an invalid one, and it's also an argument by weak analogy, but it's the same. It's the thing that he wanted to avoid and was adamant that no one was allowed to respond with, and that you'll just be disregarded if you point this out. And that's kind of the thing why I have to tackle it from all these angles and say, well, if this is meant to be deductive, it's invalid. If it's meant to be an inductive argument, well, it fails for these various reasons. And if it's meant to be an abductive argument, it's just abductively invalid because it doesn't even aim to actually explain anything.
Yeah. Yep. I actually didn't see that fully until you had put it in the comments, and then I was just like, okay, yeah. I
mean, I think that's an issue for a different reason, though. The issue with the intelligent design movement at all in its entirety. It's an appeal to say that we don't know certain things, so we should instead conclude that certain things are the product of a designer. But it doesn't actually answer the fundamental question of how these things arise, or how the mechanistic processes of certain reactions or processes actually occur.
Yeah.
Which is the entire point of science.
Well, it's also the reason why it's just fundamentally unfalsifiable, because if you leave designer entirely undescribed and unlimited or unrestricted in your description, just that it has intelligence, any results that you get from any experiments is consistent with that, because you can just say, well, that's how the designer did it. I don't know why he did it that way, but that's how he did it.
Yeah, and that's the aggravating thing. Like, even with Behe, for instance, he does that. Where it's like, Behe lays out, well, not exactly lays out, there's criteria in Behe's model of intelligent design that permit for it to be falsified. But Behe doesn't consider his model to be falsified because he will just appeal to the fact that, oh, well, God chose to do it this way. He doesn't have to, conform to our measly human understanding of the world in order to, to make things valid or to make things become realized.
It's more accurate to say that Behe's conception of intelligent design takes on the air of falsifiability, something like irreducible complexity, and he'll give his paragon example of something that he deems to be irreducibly complex. Someone shows how it isn't irreducibly complex, and he says, okay, well, that doesn't refute the principle. It just means that thing isn't irreducibly complex, not that there are no irreducibly complex things.
Well, I mean, he's denied. I believe in the Kitzmiller trial, he denied that certain evidence actually basically existed.
Oh no, like if you read the transcript, he flatly contradicts himself a number of times. And yeah, he did flatly say that like there was no scientific published papers about the development of the immune system.
Yeah, the development and its evolution, even though there were like several books and a few hundred articles about produced on that very topic. And he dismissed it flatly.
Well, he was also asked, "Did you read these?" And he said no. So, like, do you think that perhaps any of these have the information that you're saying doesn't exist? No, because there's been no paper published about that. Well, what about these papers? Well, they just don't have it. But I thought you said you didn't read it. Well, I didn't read it. And then it just kind of went on from there.
I think the issue is that fundamentally, there is nothing, I guess, like for Behe that would falsify his model. Because his model is tied to the science, it's tied to his belief in a god.
It's unfalsifiable in principle, and that's the main issue. Because like there is in the philosophy of science this genuine question about falsifiability and what it is that you do with things that seemed falsifiable in the past, but no longer seem falsifiable. Like,
I mean, statistically, there's very I won't say strict necessarily, but there are definitely guiding principles in terms of how something can be considered falsified.
Yeah, no. Popper had to build upon that specifically because he recognized that there was a problem here. Because the idea that the heart pumps blood at one point seemed like a falsifiable thing, but how the hell would you falsify that nowadays?
Right.
There's no actual practical way that you could falsify that because it's already been established. Because back when that was first thought of, people generally believed that the heart generated blood, that it didn't circulate it, it didn't pump it. They thought it actually actively produced it, and that's why you needed to engage in bloodletting, because your heart was just making too much blood. And I can't remember the name of the scientist, but basically he did a dissection where he cut a snake open and pinched the arteries off and was able to track where the blood was going. And he saw that it was just being circulated through the body, and he determined that the heart was actually pumping blood, not generating it. And so it's at least falsifiable in principle. That is, there is some conceivable state of affairs wherein it could have been shown to be wrong. There's no practical way you can falsify that anymore. It's just a matter of fact now.
Yeah, I mean, the primary reason, if I recall right, why Behe's model can't actually be falsified is a tacit assertion on his behalf is that no part of the system that's being described can ever change in function, which at a fundamental basis is contrary to what evolution operates under.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just a patently false claim.
It is, and there's a number of problems with it. And he's also, after the trial, he revised his definition of irreducible complexity in order to incorporate the fact that he was soundly refuted in the courtroom when someone showed up with a mousetrap as a necktie or something, or as a tie clip.
Yeah.
If nothing else, they're at least trying to present something that looks like science, even though it really isn't.
Yeah, but when it comes to falsification, the actual problem is that the claims being made lack a certain kind of specificity.
Yes.
So it doesn't say, like, in terms of irreducible complexity, what sort of structures are supposed to be irreducibly complex, or what kind of function is supposed to be irreducibly complex.
Yes, I've noticed that too. Their claims are very ill-defined.
Yeah. Well, they're just infinitely flexible, and so they can incorporate anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the claims particularly are about how a particular mechanism like evolution couldn't have produced certain things, but it doesn't actually give predictive generation as to what we should expect from systems if they were the product of an intelligent designer.
Well, more specifically, it's a system is irreducibly complex if removing
Uh-oh.
an insignificant number of its essential parts results in it ceasing to function in a particular way, and evolution can't account for it.
Oh, fuck. Uh-oh.
And it's like, okay, so what exactly are these essential parts? Because it's not what biochemists would say are like the fundamental parts of it. It doesn't specify how many parts. It doesn't talk about what kinds of functions or what kinds of structures. It doesn't even take into consideration the fact that functions can change in evolution. So literally, it's like, okay, so there's something out there that's irreducibly complex, but we don't know what it is or what it does. Just that there's something.
Well, and that's all they care about. If they find one thing, oh, evolution's destroyed because yada 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 yada.
Well, it would be nice if they could find one thing, but the problem is that they find a plethora of things. Like irreducible complexity is so like nondescript. You could apply it to planets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could apply it to stars. Well, I mean, and they kind of do. Like, Altangelo literally thinks that atoms are irreducibly complex. He thinks that quarks are irreducibly complex.
How does that work?
I don't know.
But wait a minute.
Humans are irreducibly complex, but they're also made up of things which are also irreducibly complex.
Yeah.
So something's got to give.
Exactly.
You would think.
Joel thinks
Something must be reduced. Yeah, well, the thing is, I would love to ask good old Joel if he knows anything about spin statistics theorem. And if he knows why we call fermions fermions and why we call bosons bosons.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's spin statistics theorem.
He claimed that black body radiation has nothing to do with quantum mechanics.
Well, it's because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, duh.
Well, he's a physicist,
And you
idiot.
say that like it's
a phys idiot.
Remember, guys,
idiot.
he's a quantum he's a general relativity researcher. He worked at NASA. That's his official job title.
He worked at SpaceX. He launched rockets with general relativity.
Don't ask him why they didn't just call him an aerospace engineer. I don't know. That'd be kind of a simpler explanation. But hey.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I don't think we use general relativity.
Ask him if he knew Werner von Braun.
Yeah, he probably does.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we use
Werner von Braun, and then when he says that he does know Werner von Braun, ask him, so how is it, like, in that situation where your job title is basically forwarding the work of a Jew working under a Nazi?
Yeah, but he believes Werner was a Christian. He accepted Jesus.
Oh, he's that asshole who also thought that Einstein was a Christian.
Einstein was a Christian. Spinoza was a Christian.
Yeah, even though his private writings say something very, very different.
But Einstein really meant that he was a Christian. Don't you know?
Did you know he got banned from Wikipedia?
Yes, I know that.
That's pretty funny.
Like, it's funny because, like, of all the private letters that are interesting of Einstein, it's not like his views on God or the ideas he had about science that he was toying around with. The things that I found most interesting of it was all the people that he had on the side and all the affairs he was having. Huh. That's the far more interesting bit, if you ask me.
Yep.
Because apparently he didn't need to marry his cousin, but he did.
Huh.
I love Icarus. It gives the definition for a fermion boson, and at the end, I Googled it, though. He could have had me fooled if he didn't type that in, because Icarus isn't stupid.
I was going to make a physics joke about how if you just stare at an integral long enough, it'll converge.
Integrals are irreducibly complex.
Oh, well, calculus was discovered, not invented, don't you know?
Okay, guys, I gotta go. Bye.
Okay, goodbye.
I think we're probably also going to get going.
Yeah, I think we got to go.
Yeah, I've got, like, 19% battery left, so...
Anyway, no direction. Thank you for putting the frosting on that cake.
Yes.
Well, hopefully,
delicious.
If life doesn't get in the way, I'm probably going to do a bit more extensive dissection of his video and upload that as a video. So
yep,
that would be really, really.
Do I have? Yeah, I got your email address. I have I have a transcript for it, so I can share it with you.
A transcript of what?
Of
The
that
video.
Oh no! I watched the video in its entirety and pretty well.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he has the argument laid out underneath it, and that's pretty
all
well
you need.
after his introduction. All that
Right.
really matters.
Okay. Good enough.
Because I'm just interested in the challenge he issued, which was vague, and
Pretty vague.
and also the fact that like there are a few videos of his or of interactions he's had. They're not necessarily his videos, where he's presented a variety of different arguments, all of which are invalid.
Yep.
But there's also an interaction he had with the Raging Atheist, where they were supposed to be discussing abortion. And at one point in that conversation, Maddox said, "Pregnancy has nothing to do with abortion."
I'm not even laughing just because that sounds so much like a Mad Max thing to say. That sounds like
being
a Mad
unmarried has nothing to do with being a bachelor.
What's
Yep.
scary about
100%.
that is that what's scary about that, and he's revealed this, so it's not doxing him, is that he is a child.
Was that what he went on the Rage's channel and they had that little kerfuffle?
It was supposed to be a civil disagreement with two moderators, and
Oh,
he immediately came in hot and just
like he always does.
which is funny because like the first time I was introduced to his channel, it was him making a video about how everyone else, all these atheists and these new atheists in particular, are so sensitive and so easily triggered.
right.
You know the irony of that, though, is that he actually was on the Atheist Experience once. Somebody managed to find a video of.
I've been looking.
I have it somewhere.
It's good.
Yeah.
Matt just shuts down his bullshit right away.
If you look up, I believe it's Atheist Experience, John, I think it's Nashville, you'll find it. And it's just precious.
Yeah,
Because the
really
argument he uses there hasn't changed one bit.
The problem I have with Maddox is the density of arguments or actual meat in his videos. I mean, there's hardly anything there. There's nothing to grab onto.
No,
you know?
there isn't. A lot of it happens to be like just him insulting people,
Posturing,
being like very belligerent in terms of his argumentative style.
Browbeating. He does a lot of browbeating. Like he had an open mic. Oh, geez, I want to say maybe Saturday. It was sometime I think earlier this week, and Guts Gibbon was there, and every time
Right
she would
after
make
me.
a valid point, he would just state, "Well, I mean, you obviously don't understand this. You're naive." Or he'd be like, you know, yeah, you were Top Dog. He would just say, "Well, I just think you're naive," and you could tell that when Guts Gibbon would say this, when Erica would say this, it would kind of irritate him. You could tell by the tone of his voice. She'd be like, "Well, the feeling is mutual. I think the same thing about you, John."
Yeah, it's just like the whole video here. The rest of it is just posturing. Just this bullshit about atheist fantasy. I mean, he loves these little acronyms he comes up with, like his droid.
The thing that I also delighted in was if you look in the live chat replay, apparently he's offering people money to come in and talk to him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's offering people to fly people out. Didn't you know?
It's like, okay, two things there.
And
One,
last night he said he
how
was
thirsty
losing.
are you for attention that you're willing to pay people to come in and disagree with you?
More than smoking.
Two, if you have that kind of money to throw around where anybody who joins gets some money just so that you can have a conversation, why did you need that GoFundMe to watch a bunch of
Yeah.
experience videos?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
Hashtag John Maddox is a grifter.
okay, on a stream last night, he said he was close to losing his house because of the
Really?
downturn. Yeah.
He said he's moving.
I wonder if him spending like some excessive money to get Google to promote his channel,
Might have something to do with it.
it might have something to do with it. And I also wonder that since he's being
His
a little
financial advisor, Nicolas Cage.
that might be, but don't dox him. But the other thing is that he was complaining about like how he thinks his channel should be larger and should be reaching a larger audience of people. Well, guess what, pretty boy? You should have fucking not pissed off Matt Dillon and actually like just ponied up and actually did the fucking debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
How many
guarantee-
subscribers do you think he'd have if he did?
Oh, he'd probably be easily like 2. Well,
I don't know.
He's
he
at
got a
1K
lot-
right now.
He got a lot of hate subs as a result of that.
Did you notice that Standing for Truth topped out at just under 3K, I think?
He's been
at like 2.8K for a while.
A long time. Yeah. There's a
but he's
certain
been that way
market.
since he started. Like, his channel grew exponentially, and then it stopped.
Who's Standing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, me
Yeah,
and Speed just keep getting head and head. He's at 198, and I'm at 198.
I'm at 198.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I got another sub today. Wow.
If you want to boost your sub count, all you have to do is release the occasional anime video.
I got to remember to send that guy $10.
Well, we got to get a webcam star on here and really entice the attention of people.
We need kittens, and
It's the only way subscriber counts grow, or so people on Reddit tell me.
Wait, what?
Don't worry about it.
There we go. There's a kitten.
There's a kitten.
Oh, you have to do kitten video?
Kitten videos, yeah.
That kitten looks like, I don't know, something that you'd see in Skyrim as a baby Khajiit.
That looks like something from Pet Cemetery.
Now it's getting too close to furry.
Oh, by the way, The Stand is coming out when this weekend? Stephen King, they're redoing The Stand as a series on CBS.
Speaking of this Saturday, Speed, are we doing this debate on Standing's channel or not?
Yeah,
I think we should. Even if they don't move it, let's just do it. Because, like I said, what we can do is when they overtalk us, we can let them so that we can just hammer them on how they're overtalking us the whole time and how Standing isn't really doing much. He'll do a little bit to moderate.
Right.
I don't think that he's just not going to moderate at all. He's going to moderate, but he's going to slightly favor his own side. We both know that. Standing isn't a terrible moderator, but obviously he's not the greatest. He does favor his own side, but he does do some form of moderation.
He slightly favors his own side? Really?
Well, it depends on the debate, because I have seen him actually be decent, and then I've seen him be like pretty much not. He's never been a bad Well, I guess not moderating at all is a bad moderator. So I mean, I've seen him not moderate at all, but then I've seen him, be somewhat. I'm not gonna say he was, 100% impartial, but I mean, he did have. He's impartial when the side that's actually getting talked over presses him to start moderating. That's kind of his style of moderation.
Leo, I started reading this, and then I remembered who we're debating.
Wait, I can't see what the title of that is.
The Nature of Consciousness by Ned Block, Flanagan, and Guzzledeer.
Okay.
Yeah. Philosophical debates. It's got Dennett's papers and a bunch of other shit in here. So
I did want to say.
But then I realized I was doing all this like heavy philosophical lifting, and then I realized, and then I reminded myself who I'm debating with.
I thought you were going to respond to that by saying philosophy is just bullshit, which
Philosyphilis.
It's not.
I call it philosyphilis.
Well, if you have on Otangelo's conception of philosophy, then yeah, it is bullshit, because it's just basically someone sitting in an armchair looking at a donut going, what if I'm actually the donut? What if the donut is God?
I did want to let Immutable know, if you watch that debate, be ready to throw out all the linear algebra and calculus questions you can, because Prey's already told me he's bringing up quantum mechanics in the debate.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to ask him on some like group theory stuff, since he's like really mathematically.
Oh, don't ask him what an isomorphism is.
Oh man, I'll ask him something simpler. I'll ask him what an automorphism is.
Anyway, are you gonna co-moderate Mutable?
Oh Jesus! Why did you do this on air? I swear to fucking God.
Oh yeah, to put you on the spot. You on the
That's
spot
2 hours.
now.
I will consider it.
Will Standing let him?
Do you got the cojones to co-moderate?
The Theo Jones.
Yeah.
I will shove my cojones somewhere where they do not belong if you keep this up.
Oh no. Well, how do you know I wouldn't enjoy that?
Fuck.
You don't know me that well.
Well, I mean, it's a shot in the dark I'm willing to take.
Oh my God, I can't. Khajiit wears if you has coin. Watch
You have
yourself,
no
traveler.
other
Khajiit does not play these games.
Okay, we got to end this, guys. So I'm gonna
I've
end
been
the
going for about 2 hours. I've only got like 16% left. Yeah, 16.
Okay, we're ending. Goodbye, all out there in the world. Okay, ending.